rSlashMaliciousCompliance. Leave my window open? No problem. Roger that. In 2007 I joined the Navy. I was 26. 2008 we went on deployment and I was a lowly E3, so most of the guys I worked with were like 18 and pretty timid yes men. Had a first class, E6, who was just trying to ride out his time till retirement. Our chief stayed in his ass, and when he got his ass chewed it rolled downhill. We spent most of that deployment doing ignorant shit like painting in the rain. Mopping in the rain. Painting spaces just to have to paint them again in a month. Me and another guy were supposed to paint a fan room for an upcoming inspection. It didn't really need to be painted, but for some reason in the military it's a high crime for someone to have any downtime whatsoever. First class brought us over to the space that we were supposed to paint, and he opened the door and said, "I want this whole fricking room painted white, do you understand?" "Sure thing, petty officer, we will take care of it." He left to go sit in his chair for the day. A fan room is not entirely white. Just the walls and ceiling. The floor is a dark gray and there are different colored pipes and stenciling on the pipes and directional arrows. That's not what he said though. He said fricking white. So me and my buddy opened a 5-gallon can of white paint and every single square inch of that fan room was painted white. Floor, walls, piping, ceiling, machinery, everything. About 8 p.m. we went to the office and let him know we were done and awaiting his approval. We were standing by. He and another first class walk up and we knew it was coming. We also knew that he was going to have to explain it too. He opened the door and it was so bright he could have gotten retinal burn. He closed the door and paused. Opened the door again, looked around again and closed the door. He asked if we knew the floor was supposed to be gray and the piping stenciled. "Yes, petty officer. That's not what I told you to do though, was it?" "No, petty officer, it wasn't." They look at each other and knew they fricked up. They were not even mad. He just said, "Let's let this paint dry and in a few days we will fix the floor and piping." We ended up not even having to do it as he tasked someone else with the job. After that I didn't get forced into doing stupid bullshit anymore. Best part is his immediate realization that it was his fault. That second door check is when I lost it. Like somehow the process of closing the door and opening it again was going to be a hard reset. I do this to my fridge all the time. I could have told them it never works. Brain whispering. Check it again. Do it. Still just tofu, milk, eggs, and cheddar cheese. I'm not sure what I can make for dinner. I'll check again in an hour and see if there is any change. That ain't right. There's always half an onion somewhere. Onion omelet with diced fried tofu filling and grated molten cheddar. Fold it in half. Enjoy. But how do you fold in the cheese? Just fold it in, David. It's really good they did, so many do not. My ex was former army and he was tasked with sweeping and mopping the storeroom. The floor was dirt. Yeah, sweeping. Okay, dirt floors get stuff on them like any other. But mopping? His command did not see the issue. Dirt floor got polished till it shone. This guy militaries. The one base wanted nice golf greens on the base, but there is a drought. Solution was to order AstroTurf and pave the greens with it. For the fairways they simply got a lot of green paint, and painted the rock hard-baked ground as well. This was freaky from the air coming into land, seeing this green amongst all the brown. They followed orders to the letter like good soldiers. He can't fault them for that. Gum. What's your sole purpose in this unit? To do whatever you tell me to, drill sergeant? God damn it, Gum. You're a goddamn genius. This is the most outstanding answer I have ever heard. You must have a goddamn IQ of 160. You are goddamn gifted, Private Gump. Listen up, people. During the first week after I joined the Army, our regiment commander, Colonel J.C. Lund, addressed our company, and during his talk, he stressed that our most important job in the Army was to think for ourselves. He ordered us to speak up if we were ever given an order that did not make sense to us, and at the same time, he advised the NCOs and officers in the room to better have a good reason for every order they gave. Painting a room entirely white because of malicious interpretation of an imprecise order wouldn't have been much of an excuse. I'm not military, but I know it's this type of attribute that separates the best leaders. The rigid rules are necessary, doubly so because not every commanding officer will be at that level. But this is ultimately what makes an effective unit elite. During the first week after I joined the Army, Our regiment commander, Colonel J.C. Lund, addressed our company, and during his talk, he stressed that our most important job in the Army was to think for ourselves. He ordered us to speak up if we were ever given an order that did not make sense to us, and at the same time, he advised the NCOs and officers in the room to better have a good reason for every order they gave. Painting a room entirely white because of malicious interpretation of an imprecise order wouldn't have been much of an excuse. I'm not military, but I know it's this type of attribute that separates the best leaders. The rigid rules are necessary, doubly so because not every commanding officer will be at that level. But this is ultimately what makes an effective unit elite. Enforce the rules? Sure. Short and sweet. I have an employee who kicks ass and works hard. He has never failed to exceed the goals I set for him, and he is setting records for the amount of value he is bridging to the company. He has an incredible work ethic and almost never takes a break. I actually have to remind him a few times a week that he needs to clock off for lunch, and he begrudgingly does it. A few weeks ago, one of my bosses came downstairs and saw him checking Twitter. He got laid into and had his job threatened, and then I got called upstairs for 20 minutes of being yelled at. I was told that I needed to crack the whip and make sure we were getting the amount of work we are paying him for. I took this personally. This is my best worker, and if my boss had come to me first, I would have explained why I don't micromanage him. I went back down and pulled him aside for a quick meeting. I told him that if anyone came down while he was looking at social media, Reddit, etc., and asked him, "Is this work related?" his answer should be, "No. I'm on my 10-minute break," and then he needed to stop working for the next 9 minutes. Even if he wasn't on his phone, GE should immediately take a 10 whenever my boss walked in. We are legally entitled to 2 10-minute breaks every shift, and the company allows us to take them whenever we want. So instead of him using his phone for 1 minute every couple of hours, he was taking 2 full, paid breaks. My boss realized what was happening pretty quickly. To his credit, he called both of us upstairs and apologized for trying to micromanage us without taking into account the individual working styles. He was promised that his job was safe, and I was promised that I'd be in charge of my team as long as we continued to perform at the level we have been. Edit. To clear up something that's been brought up repeatedly, this wasn't some fairy tale happy ending where the boss is revealed to be the good guy all along. I think it was good of him to apologize, and I'm glad he pulled back, but he's not a great boss. He's usually not that bad, but he's not the kind of guy who anyone particularly likes working with. The company recently grew big enough that they hired a CFO, and this incident was one of several warning signs that he's turning it into a toxic work environment. I am actively looking for a new job. Also, I've had a few people PM me asking if I work for blank company. None of them have been right, and it's disheartening to realize that so many people have bosses like this. You guys need to get out if this is a familiar story. I will say that it's a small company that created and sells a software package designed to make working remotely easier. Kind of sounds like your boss had a bad day and took it out on his employees. He's a kick-ass boss for owning update though. Everybody makes mistakes, only the good ones own update. In my experience, this factor alone is the line between a good boss and a bad one. Everyone has bad days and everyone makes mistakes. If your superior cannot accept responsibility for their actions, both good and bad, they are abusing their position. It's not good for their employees and it's not good for them either. Everyone has bad days and everyone makes mistakes. If your superior cannot accept responsibility for their actions, both good and bad, they are abusing their position. Boss should accept responsibility for the bad and elevate their employees for the good. This is a great boss that will consistently get better performing teams. There's a massive difference between management and leadership. A simple rule to follow is PPPB. Public praise, private bollocking. Yeah, this story was the opposite. Dressed down in public, apologized in private. That's how I always tried to be with my employees. I'm not a saint, so it has gone the other way before though. But I always made sure to apologize publicly as well. When I worked as a service desk agent, we were entitled to 2 by 15-minute breaks plus lunch break. At calm times we would just stick to our desk, talk, do whatever, but phones were available for incoming calls. So we would just use our break button on the phone for going to the toilet, get coffee and return to our desk. Most of us used maybe half of what we were entitled to. One guy smoked and smoking at the desk wasn't allowed, So he used more of his break time, still within limits of the 15 minutes per half day he got reprimanded for using most, while all others were lower in break time used. Needless to say, everyone started to take up all the 15 minutes after that. Not taking into account the individual working styles, my ass. This had nothing to do with working style and everything to do with your boss thinking that his employees are his slaves and shouldn't have a single minute of the day not bringing him profits. He even used crack the whip terminology. Your boss still sucks and only apologized to try to get your employee to stop taking his legally required breaks. This isn't a bad workday. He basically admitted he would have seen nothing wrong with his behavior if it hadn't led to the worker actually doing what he's supposed to. There is absolutely no excuse for threatening someone's job over seeing them on Twitter for a minute. Your boss is a boss and I hope the worker finds a new job. You should start looking too. Sounds like a shields down moment to me. I am working my ass off and someone comes down out of the blue and threatens my job for checking Twitter at work, and at best gives a poor apology about work styles for it. Hell no. I'd personally be looking for an exit. You don't casually threaten to fire someone like that and expect them to stick around, especially a top performer in an employee's market like this. I'd be talking raise, promotion for said employee with that boss, right now. Just actually take your legally mandated break, bro, is 0% reassure for the employee that this or worse won't happen in the future at the next bad mood, especially with such a thin, as long as you're amazing, I won't fire you, apology from said boss. I have to 2 to 10x my job not to be fired while getting 1x pay? How is that fair? You know what else being amazing can get me as an employee in this market? Another job where people don't threaten my livelihood out of the blue. You're going to want to entice your amazing employee with something to stay, right now, or you're going to lose him. That's the train your boss has set in motion. Stopping it is going to take way more effort than either of you have made. I started an office job and had never had a job like that before. I mainly had to take input orders. When I had literally nothing to do, I would check my socials or read a book. Boss would hold meetings with the entire team to berate poor performers and praise top performers. He told one of my supervisors that the new girl made less mistakes than her this month without ever having done this work before. It was awkward for my praise to be tied into someone else's berating. A month later I got chewed out for checking my socials when I had nothing to do, and my boss removed access to the internet on my computer. The job paid well, so I decided I'd just read my books in my spare time. I then got told I couldn't do that either. That, coupled with some other terrible experiences, pushed me to quit. I came in early the next day, dropped a letter on my boss and manager's desk detailing in full why I was quitting abruptly and how toxic of a work environment they had created. I never looked back. Op is sure to lose her top performer the same way. From that first incident I was already looking for a new job. I had a similar situation. I've always worked high-paced retail and took an office job at what turned out to be a call center. Due to being used to working fast and multitasking, within a month I was taking many more calls than the rest of the 50-person staff. In all the other metrics I was consistently top 3 every month as well. The department manager never left her office and had no idea of what actually happened in there, but she chastised me for being on away mode too many times a day, implying that I wasn't working hard enough. That was strike one. Between calls, your phone would be on await mode for 5 minutes to get your notes straight, set up for the next call, whatever. I had all of that finished up by the end of the call, so I was watching disc golf tournaments on YouTube. She found out and disabled my YouTube access. Not the department, who was all watching things, just mine. Strike 2. The last strike was when she saw me in the camera on my cell phone, texting my wife whose father was in the hospital. So I cleaned out all of my personal belongings and starting looking for jobs. Found one and starting working on my resignation letter. She decided to have a department meeting, and instead of the usual chastising about how our numbers could be better, she went positive. Recognized my performance with a $150 bonus for being top in all 3 categories. So I took my bonus and in front of the department, said, "Thank you so much for the bonus and recognition, I quit." Her jaw might still be on the floor. She said she was blindsided. One of the team leads that I got along with called her out and asked how she was so surprised. My desk had been basically empty for a month, and when I wasn't there, it looked like an empty spot. She was cool. I hope she's doing well. The department manager was just so garbage. I had a guy who wasn't my boss try to pull that kind of crap a few jobs ago. Our marketing and tech departments were on either side of an open courtyard with big windows so we could see each other. The head of marketing was known to look over at us and take notes when one of us walked in a minute late or appeared to do something non-work related. The CEO called my boss into his office and showed him what the marketing guy had sent him. Luckily, the CEO was a cool guy who trusted him to run the department the way he saw fit. They got a good laugh over it, and so did we when he told us. At another job, I had remote sites that I maintained, and 2 of them were between my house and the office. If I had an issue that wasn't urgent, I'd stop by on my way into work the next day and let the manager know what was going on. After my job changed and we got a new manager, I was suddenly written up for repeatedly showing up late. Turns out someone in another department saw me come in late and told his boss who told my boss, who wanted to make a good impression by writing me up for something from several months ago. Our old manager left the company, so he wasn't there to set the record straight. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy anyway, so it didn't matter. The correct way to handle job number 1 is for the CEO to trust the department manager. He did this, good. And then ask the head of marketing why he was wasting his time spying on other employees instead of doing something productive. Reminds me of my first real job. Everyone at the office uses IM to chat with each other for work tasks, etc. At some point, my group, got pulled into a meeting with our boss. He told us all that sales was watching our IM status automatically changed away, and had decided we weren't doing enough work and reported it up the chain. Our boss knew exactly how stupid this was, so we all changed our statuses to never changed away. Sunday 2 a.m., I'm there. Of course, sales could have been selling things, or infighting, as they did constantly. But they were wasting time watching us. Not my client, not my problem. So this is a 2-parter. I am a social worker who has been working with the homeless population for well over 2.5 years. For the most part, I interact with people who show me high levels of respect. The street goes both ways. About twice a month, I interact with someone who tries to use anger, fear, and manipulation to get their needs met. Their harsh tactics used to work with me, and I would drop everything I was doing to attend to their rage-filled requests. We just hired this guy who does not do his job. He sits around on his phone and distracts everyone his whole shift. The first week or so, he shadowed the housing help desk, which is just a fancy word of saying open office hours for anyone in the shelter. The help desk is a thing beast. You never know what you're going to walk into. Everyone dreads doing the desk. So the other day I had a client who was needing M's. I asked him to help me, and he said, "Not my client, not my problem." Then started mindlessly scrolling through Facebook. At first people respected him because of his credentials, now everyone in the department sees right through him now. My boss is starting to throw responsibility at him. He usually responds with, "I'm not ready," and my boss responds with something passive-aggressively empowering, "I believe in you. You have XYZ experience." So you may be wondering where these 2 things intersect. Today, I was looking for someone on my caseload. I walked by the housing help desk to see if he was hanging around in line. This client stops me and starts taunting me. "I see you helping other people and you won't even look at me. You treat me like I'm a bum, not a homeless person. Frick you. You aren't doing anything right now. You're just walking around. I need your help. Come on." I respond with strong boundaries and refer him to my coworker. I don't want to break the process. You're in line for the housing help desk. He will help you when it's your turn. After all, it wouldn't be fair to skip the other guy in line. He will meet with you soon. Point at coworker through the glass. He shakes his head and gives me the "No, don't do this to me" look. Cue epic power struggle between the client and I keep referring him to the other worker. By this time, the other guy in line has had enough of his yelling and screaming and leaves. About 5 minutes pass and I'm not budging. It's just escalating this client even further. The client my coworker is meeting with leaves and the seat for the next client opens. I look through the glass and my coworker is frantically looking up and down, pretending to be busy. Going through the file cabinet that nobody uses. Pushing buttons on the copier like he's faxing something. Opening stacks of paper and enters it into the paper tray. The client is getting so upset. "Frick you dude, help me now. What the frick is that guy doing? Have him help me. This shouldn't take this long." I peep my head through the door and ask my coworker if he's ready. He stalls and stalls, expecting me to bend. I tell the client, I'm not bending the rules for you. You have to meet with the case manager at the desk. I have 30 other clients I meet with while I'm not running the desk. I open the door. Hey coworker X. It seems like this guy really wants to meet with you. I've got to email over something to our boss. Can you help him? I look at him. Not my client, not my problem. Less than 4 hours later, he's already calling places to follow up on his application. Sounds like there was some fiction in someone's resume. I already caught him in a lie about what is on his resume. You need to have a degree in social work or a related field. The other day he was talking about his student loans and needing to go back to school. I responded to his story not in a malicious way, just as a genuine question. Why would you need to go back to school for a bachelor's? Also, how do you have student loans? Aren't you a veteran? I thought the GI Bill covered your student loans. Well, I never finished boot camp actually, and I'm only a few classes away from graduating. Yes, I have kept that a secret from everyone because it's not my business. Besides, a degree is a piece of paper, experience is what matters. As soon as I read, I never finished boot camp, I was done. Nothing this guy says is true and it's all fluff. It's called stolen valor. If a real veteran catches him saying that shit, he's done for. My brother-in-law likes to talk about his experience in the military. He also never finished boot camp. He'll admit it at least though. We just hired this guy who does not do his job. Then he should be shown the door and become a client. The way he refers to our clients is heartbreaking too. How can we expect them to succeed if their own case manager is talking about how they will fail as soon as they get into housing? These people are already at the bottom of their barrels. Come on dude, build them up. Sure, we vent behind closed doors. But tearing down clients is not the culture of the department or the organization. What a jerk. Good on you for standing up for yourself. Props to you for the work you do every day. Thanks, it is really rewarding. I am very fortunate to have never been homeless or worry about what I will eat at night. I feel the urge, maybe guilt, to help level the playing field for those less fortunate. I spent several years working for a nonprofit call center dealing with public benefits across states. Yeah, that 3-letter place. People like that guy drove us nuts because instead of helping their clients directly, they'd call us as a middleman to fill out the applications for whatever benefits they wanted for the person just answering their files. Once in particular had 12 clients one day, and I was 3 hours late going to lunch because of her. Thanks to a good manager, that changed to being allowed to tell a case manager that we could only set one authorized representative on one file per call and that they'd need to call back to apply each additional client since each interview call would also be separate. Funny, they suddenly developed the ability to fill out their own damn applications in short order. I spent several years working for a nonprofit call center dealing with public benefits across states. Yeah, that 3-letter place. FBI, CIA, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, CNN, HLN, MIA, SOS, TIL, TLC, KGB, AMX, NYC, DOA, LLC, USA, KMA, ISO, AAA, INC, FDA, FCC, FAA, MCA, TCL, AOL, AT, ATV, USB, SUV, SVU, CSI, JFK, LAX. Either he is incredibly lazy, or he has somehow falsified his credentials and therefore tries to put the work off onto others to cover it up. I think you should encourage your boss to verify his credentials. If they aren't valid, anonymously tip off his potential employers, if you know who they are, that they should verify his claimed background. If they are valid, call them and be like, if you can get him to work, you might have a good employee. Better yet, contact various organizations in the area that handle the same type of work that he might try to work at, and low-key blackball him. The faster his options disappear, the sooner he'll either shape up or he'll ship out, move. Win-win for your area. Leave my window open? No problem. So to begin with, this happened several years ago. I was 18, just moved into the dorms at my university and met my roommate, let's call her May. She had a very petty mean girl personality, but honestly I've never been bothered by stuff like that. She was a germaphobe, soon didn't mind cleaning our shared bathroom after using it, since she did too, and I even let her use my microwave and mini fridge, so as a general rule we got along. Our dorms were divided into pods, with each pod having 2 bedrooms and a bath in each room, fitting 2 people. Well, May happened to know the girl in the other pod, Danielle. Danielle's roommate never showed up, so May moved over there and boom. My very own room. The issue started in late October when the temperatures dropped regularly. See, I'm a very warm-bodied person. I get hot easily and my ideal room temperature is around 65 degrees, doable in the winter. In the summer I obviously hover more at 73 because AC is too expensive. Either May or Danielle liked a hot room, so our shared thermostat sat at 78 regularly, and I was always sweaty and miserable. I tried turning it down to 70, but they got angry and reported me for harassment, which went nowhere but still. Finally, one day Danielle told me I wasn't allowed to touch it. Excuse me? I think I pay to live here too, and if I was hot, just open a window. What a marvelous idea. Our rooms had locks, and May traded her key to my room for a key to Danielle's room, so I was thrilled to open my windows. Both windows remained open 24/7, and I slept like a baby every night. The thermostat now read a solid 68 almost constantly, which meant my room was nice and cold, and likely, so was theirs. May talked to me and tried to make me shut them, but I told her no, if you guys are cold, you can put on a jacket or buy a space heater. Danielle even tried begging me to shut it, and then talked to Ra about my behavior. All the Ra said was that in my room, I was allowed to open the window, and that's what I did. My comfort wasn't any concern to them, so why should I care about theirs? They started doing petty things, like breaking the plates I offered to share, making my microwave, in our small common space, stink, etc. So I moved those into my room and they were left having to buy their own supplies. When the end of second semester came and I was moving out, Danielle confronted me for ruining her dorm life. What? Because she could never be comfortable wearing as little as she wanted, and I remember laughing at her. I reminded her she's the one who suggested opening my windows, and she's the one who refused to compromise on the room temperature. That was the only year I lived in the dorms on campus, but boy was it a hoot. Funny thing is, I spent most of my time out of the room anyway because of class, work, scholarship activities and hanging out with my friends. So if she would have kept the thermostat at, say, 72 to 73 degrees, we never would have had a problem. Oh well. I can't even imagine 78 degrees. I have our thermostat constantly set at 67 or 68 degrees, and anything warmer will make me uncomfortably hot. I adjusted for my current roommate, who prefers a hot house but compromises on the lower 70s range since I like a cold one. A fan is a definite must though. My partner runs very warm and I run very cold, so we keep our house a little bit on the cold side and I always have a heated blanket nearby. Pure bliss in our relationship. Same here, the AC is just expensive AF. It's about $150 a month for a 1,400 square feet home. Sad face. I ain't American and don't use that system. What is that in Celsius so that I can put a comment to whine about it? 70F is about 21°C. Holy shit, this is considered hot. My idea of cold is about 24 degrees in my air conditioner and I die at school with a 20 degrees thermostat. How? When I was a teenager, my parents kept the house that cold in the summer. I would go outside once an hour and stand barefoot on our blacktop driveway to warm up. My ideal temperature was 80.6 Fahrenheit, so 27 degrees Celsius. Sadly, my girlfriend insists on fresh air and stuff, so since living together I have to live with having to keep cloths on. Medieval times, I'm telling you. Ours stays at 70 because any lower and my entire family freezes to death, but they all know better than to even suggest turning it up. 70 is my compromise. If I'm too warm at 70 I suck it up and deal, so if they're too cold at 70, I just remind them that they own clothing and blankets. No one is completely happy, but we're all not completely miserable either. I let mine run to 78 in summer to save on a AC bill. 78 in the winter is nuts though. I hardly use the heat in the winter, just enough to keep the apt in the 60s. 78 is cruel. I was born and raised in a subtropic climate. Did she want to wear a bikini in her room? She might as well have imported some sand and seawater to complete the vibe. I was raised in Texas and spent a lot of my formative adult years where keeping the AC at 78 meant a $300 power bill. Both me and my wife are pretty comfortable in the 79 to 81 range in the summer, mostly running the AC to cut the humidity more than to cut the temp. But I fully admit and acknowledge that is not normal. I'm in Florida and the AC in my office was on the fritz on Monday and it was around 79 most of the day. I run cold usually and I wanted to die. I don't mind heat and I kept forgetting to turn my AC. I wouldn't notice until it reached 82 to 84, and my salt and pepper clumped in the shakers due to the humidity. Different strokes for different folks. That's so much better than somebody I lived with 1 year. The dorm I spent every year but my first in, it was an upper-class only dorm, had suites with single and double bedrooms attached to a common room and bathroom. Sophomore year, the friend, post-freshman housing allowed people to pick their roommates, who was supposed to have one of the singles in our suite transferred out over the summer, and the school replaced him with a rondo. Throughout the winter, the rondo would crank the heat way up, one thermostat for the entire suite, and sit in his room with the door closed and the window wide open. That left the rest of us having to choose between sweltering or putting up with frigid drafts. Several of us generally preferred to go barefoot if we weren't leaving the dorm, but that meant a freezing cold draft across our feet every time we walked by his room. We'd turn the heat down, he'd turn it back up. We turned it down and covered the thermostat with duct tape, he'd peel the tape off, turn it up, and put the tape back. Never said a word to or otherwise interacted with any of us the whole year. He also loved bouncing a basketball in his room for some insane reason, so we had to put up with the occasional thump 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 asterisk at random times, though thankfully not while we were trying to sleep. Hooray for small mercies. Did no one ever talk to him? We basically never saw him. Whenever he was in the suite, he was shut up in his own room. Also, none of us were particularly confrontational sorts. The temperature doesn't even matter because 1 foot is still sticking out from under the covers. Oh, you have a foot thermostat too? Me too. It's always been a point of contention between my spouse and myself because she likes the top sheet tucked and I need my foot thermostat. If my feet get hot, all bets are off for sleeping. Reminds me of my previous workplace. The thermostat wars were legendary. We had my manager, who was well in excess of 350 pounds, who liked it nice and cool, and I'm with him on that, though at the time I was only about 250. On the other side, there was the nut bar. Nut bar was maybe 130 soaking wet, and seemed to think the world revolved around her, while also being as snake-frickingly crazy as possible in standard conversation. Like I can't even begin to explain. Other than us, there were like 2 other people who didn't care about the temp. They just wished the wars would stop. In sweltering summer weather, our corner office, with giant windows, so the heat bled in like mad, would often have the AC cranked back to 86 F because she was too cold. As soon as she'd leave the office, my manager would get up and set the temperature back to 65. Then she'd come back in and crank it all the way back to 86. Never mind that the manager was also her boss as well, she seemed to think she owned the place. And she'd often flip at me because she assumed I was the one to change it. We didn't get along well on the best of days. It got so bad HR eventually had to come in and locked a plastic box over the thermostat holding it about 72, and send an official notice to everyone indicating that should it ever be left unlocked, under no circumstances was anyone to touch it on pain of a write-up. Then you get the smart guy that puts a candle below the cover or an ice pack on top of it to fool the thermostat. I am the new store manager? Okay. So this happened some years ago. I had gotten a job working as a stock person loading the shelves for a craft store. The hours were unholy. 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. It took quite a bit of getting used to, and because the hours were evil, the pickings for such shifts were understandably slim. So it should be no surprise that the manager was the rotten scrapings at the bottom of a very dilapidated barrel. The store had this training system in-house on a computer, where you got an account, read what amounted to slideshow notes on safety, about not setting yourself on fire, and a quick overall cliff notes about OSHA saying not to twist your back while lifting. Now see, that's what the average employee read, and even the slowest reader could zip through in 15 to 20 minutes or so. But that's not what my training manager gave me. She pulled up a training module, didn't check that it was accurate, and walked away, telling me to read it so I could get to work. The very first line of a massive training module said, "As the new store manager, you must know and understand the laws you must follow." Me, hang on. So I called over the walkie-talkie. Me, training manager, I think you gave me the wrong training manager. My name. I gave you the same training module that I gave everyone else. Me, Training manager, I really think you should double check. Training manager, now snapping. Stop making excuses and get to it. Malicious compliance. Now let me try to help you envision this monstrosity before me. Imagine a phone book scanned into the computer, divided into over 100 sections. Every section has 20 subsections. Every subsection had between 5 and 20 sub-subsections. Every single sub-subsection was 20 pages long, in size 10 font, single-spaced. Details involved laws covering all those delightful little things like discriminatory practices in hiring and managing employees, sexual harassment, and all the ways a store manager could get themselves in the business sued by all and sundry, and how to avoid this fate at all costs. Or at least, that's how far I managed to read before my MC ended. There was still a lot left to read. Half an hour in, the training manager kicked me off and had me help shelve, berating me for taking so much time. I again told her that I had the wrong module, and again she told me to STFU and stop making excuses. She then went to the computer and closed my module, clearly without even acknowledging the gigantic screen of text instead of the neat little slideshow with pictures and big letters for 5-year-olds to read. Malicious compliance again. I tried twice, and she wasn't listening. That was all I owed her. A month into my employment and training, I still had not completed reading the phone book, having been given only 30 minutes each day. Finally, the store manager, the actual store manager, came to see why I was incapable of completing a module that should have only taken me 15 minutes, and that I really needed to improve my reading skills. Me. Store manager, I can read just fine. But as the new store manager who will be taking over for you, I really must insist on reading the entire module. Screech. Cartoon sounds of automobile accident here. Store manager, I'm sorry. Me. Training manager told me to read the store manager training module. And I need actual time to get through it. If I'm not the store manager, then I need to be given the correct module. Store manager. Did you tell her that she had given you the wrong one? Me. Yes, and I quote, and here, I pitched my voice to imitate her angry snapping voice. I gave you same training module that I gave everyone else. Stop making excuses and get to it. Back to normal voice. I told her twice and she just wouldn't listen. The store manager went very quiet. He silently took me into the break room, got me on the training computer there, and removed the store manager module from my account and put the regular employee module up. I zoomed through that bad boy in less than 10 minutes and got on with my work. The store manager and training manager disappeared for a long time. Break equals 2. Epilogue. Sadly, the training manager did not improve her behavior in the following year of my employment at that company. She remained exactly as toxic, incompetent, and a workplace bully right up until I reported her to the hotline with 6, typed up, pages of documentation. The regional manager had to come in and put the fear of God and Satan into her before she got very quiet for my remaining few months of employment before I moved out of state. But, did you get the manager position? Sadly, no. Granted, that place turned out to be such a dumpster fire of a place that I highly doubt I would have wanted to be at the head of it. Is the item in the wrong place because we're supposed to rearrange the store 6 weeks from now and the computer was updated early? Or is it in the wrong place because a customer moved it? Nobody knows. See this 4x6 area? 200 tiny items go on pegs here. Memorize where they go, when you're off the clock, to be paid a whopping $7.25 an hour when you do work. Oh, and memorize where everything else in the entire store goes to. Illegal? Nonsense. Stop making excuses and do what you're told. Your work is unsatisfactory. I expect you to go home and write up a list of things you are going to improve to make yourself a better worker. Yes, this is work-related. Yes, it is off the clock. No, you will not be compensated. What do you mean that's illegal and you reported me? Not sure why those hours are terrible. I was laid off once, and the wife got me a job, paid better than unemployment, stocking grocery shelves at Kmart. 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. 8 hours, work through lunch. One of the best jobs I ever had. Wife sure did look at me funny when my first weekend came and I showed up at home with a 12-pack and started drinking at 7:30 a.m. Grocery stores have normal items. Craft stores have items that 30 can fit in a 2INX2 in package and have 3 variations and cost $45. Never worked there, but I make jewelry as a side hustle. Yes, but what does that have to do with the hours being bad? Everyone is on vacation? Okay. TLDR at the end. I was on my way to pick up food for a popular food delivery service when a city truck, the kind that carries tar and gravel, rams into my car. I'm the last car on my block waiting in the middle lane, 3-laner, for a green light. Truck coon is turning right into my street but decides to squeeze into the left lane, making contact with my vehicle. Contact, as in, destroy my driver's side fender, front door, rear frame, and bumper. I couldn't even process what had happened because the guy knocked the wind out of me. Anyway, typical car accident stuff entails, and I hit up my car insurer. They provide me a rental vehicle covered by my insurance. I'm not content with the claim settlement amount, as it will not be able to cover for a car like my crushed Pepsi Can car's previous condition and low mileage. We go back and forth, bumping the amount little by little until she tells me she will be on vacation, so to speak, with someone else replacing her or her supervisor. Days go by. I was only supposed to have my car for a week, so I called the rental company to extend another week. A few days later, I try reaching her replacement and supervisor, voicemail. Call them a day later, voicemail. I call the general hotline instead, and someone picks up, telling me everyone is on vacation, while the supervisor is in a meeting. Sigh. Alright, I'll call tomorrow. I call the supervisor and she is still in a meeting. So I call at a different time. She's still in a meeting. I call the hotline again, and they tell me that the supervisor has been in a meeting for 2 weeks now. Something tells me her meeting is a vacation on company expense. I call in the rental company, and some incompetent kid with half a brainstem can't figure out why my rental is covered by the insurance. Keeps trying to charge me and telling me my vehicle was due the initial week. Said to call his manager the next day, Friday morning. Friday comes and I call with no one replying. It's the Friday before the long weekend before Labor Day on Monday. Ew. Q in the malicious compliance. Insurance wants to F me? Rental company wants to F me? F you. I booked the rental car for 3 weeks, total of 5 weeks. I go on my own vacation multiple times to the poker club on an indigenous reserve for weeks with my friends. Not to mention traveling between provinces in search of a new car. I racked up 10,000 kilometers in that time. They still haven't called back, but hey, everything is at their expense. It's the least they can do, and I haven't even mentioned my emotional distress the insurance doesn't cover from the trauma I get from trucks now, ha ha ha. TLDR. Truck hit me, insurer is on vacation, rental company tries to charge me for a rental car provided by insurance. So I go on vacation too. FM. Stop dicking with your insurance company and call a lawyer. It sounds like the accident was the truck's fault to begin with, and your insurance should be subrogating damage claims against them. If they keep playing games, then you need to lawyer up. Given that OP has referred to traveling between provinces, this story appears to be based in Canada. Canada operates using a no-fault insurance scheme, meaning that this particular claim does not get forwarded to the truck's insurance company. The delay will entirely be covered by OP's insurance company, and, provided that OP retains proof that they have attempted to work with the insurance company, the costs will fall on the insurance company. Okay, that wasn't clear when I read it the first time. This definitely should have been held until the fallout was apparent. Yeah, you're not going to end up happy with the end results. You think you're effing over the rental place and your insurance, but you're really just effing over yourself. You said you only have the rental for a week. Sounds like your insurance only authorized to pay up to 1 week. You calling the rental company to extend your rental does not mean your insurance will cover it. And the boy who couldn't figure out why your insurance covers your rental is probably because it's not covered by your insurance since your coverage is up. Insurance companies will not continue to cover your rental car until you agree on a number. You usually only have a set number of days after they give you the numbers to your car. Good luck on paying for your rental car. It's gonna be ugly, for sure. I'll have to check with them then. Thanks for the reality check, haha. Speaking as an insurance adjuster, this is not going to end well for you. Granted, they're providing some seriously shitty service, but most auto policies have a set limit of days you can have your rental covered. That limit is a hard limit, and they won't pay for any extra time if you're just on vacation using the rental and being out of contact. At best, they might cover a portion of it as a customer service concession, but that's far from guaranteed, and given how they've treated you so far, I doubt you're gonna get that. Have fun with your out-of-pocket expenses, because you're all but guaranteed to have some. Also, I don't see any malicious compliance here. Petty revenge, maybe, but it's hardly revenge if you still end up paying for it. In this case, since it is not the op's fault, the truck driver insurance should be covering for the rental costs, right? So it doesn't matter whether the ops insurance had a hard limit on it, I believe. At least that's how it works in Australia. There are a couple issues with that, though. This person is using their own insurance, not the at-fault party's insurance. Their insurance will try to have the at-fault insurance pay them back for all incurred expenses later. It's called subrogation. The at-fault insurance owes for rental based on the reasonable repair time of the vehicle, not the actual rental time. They could potentially owe more than the limit of OP's rental policy, but only if it's justified based on the repairs. OP is admitting they're padding the rental time out of spite, not need. The at-fault insurance company won't pay for that, and under most state law in the USA, you can't make them pay for it. Nice. You have made it to the end already. Thank you for watching. If you aren't already subscribed, please do so, as there will be more videos like this in the near future.